What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's time for another episode review of Ragnarok. Look no further than we're already on to episode 6 entitled Return of the King, and I think the Tolkien family is gonna want their name back because, it's not the king that I wanted to win. Let's be real. It's not the king I wanted to win. For those of you who don't realize, obviously the camera is pointed quite low right now because I'm leaning heavily on this chair for some lumbar support to do my talking for me at this point. For this, once again, back injury, etc., etc. And I told you guys we'd be getting through a lot more of these episode reviews as a result of me being a little bit injured on the backside there. So, anyways, episode 6, Return of the King, is a very good episode. It follows the manga panel for panel, and it's pretty solid for it. I do still not like the ending. It is enhanced by the epic music and the incredible voice acting of Hades specifically. And it did make me like the Emperor Chin a little bit more due to the voice acting, due to the anime. Similar to how Round 5, I hated Round 5 at the time. Round 7 I hated even more. And while it's still probably going to rank as my least favorite round in the series, I will say that it's not a bad round anymore. It's not bad. It's just there's so many inconsistencies, just the level of plot convenience that happens. Most of these fights come down to anyone could have won, right? And it's the circumstances. It's the butterfly effects, like the Adam fight, in round 2. In round 1, it was just that Lu Bu might be one of the greatest, strongest warriors. Sky Splitter might be great. Thor is just that much stronger, you know what I mean? Usually it comes down to simple facts. But this was an obvious plot convenience matchup in the fact that Hades' ultimate ability was his undoing. And there's no poetic justice in all that. It's just plot convenience for the ability for Chin to win. The fact that Desmos takes in the blood and ends up getting a star point because it's coated in his blood, and then for Chin to know that while heavily injured, while losing an arm, and utilizing that fact and gaining the upper hand, because had Hades chosen not to use Desmos in that regard and not coat it in his blood and use his special blood, that was not brought up for the rest of the fight. Remember, he was pretty much dominating that fight pretty handily without it. The fact that he did not need to do this to win the fight, chose to do it to end the fight, and Chin managed, because of his super eyes and his Deus Ex, I can use air bubbles and all this stuff. I explain it in length in the manga reviews or in the manga streams when this came out. But I'll be real with you, it still bothers me to this day. So much stuff had to line up for this to work, just for Hades to take an L. And this is why, though I like the character of Chin, and though I think that it's good that humanity got a victory at this junction, I feel like Hades should have won his fight, and he should have just fought somebody else. Looking at Leonidas. But anyways, fact of the matter is this is the end. This is the end of the fight. He loses. The epic score goes up, and at the end of the day, he looks to Zeus and Adamus, of course, because he commissioned Adamus to be reborn, recreated, however you want, by Beelzebub. And he just says, "I'm sorry, my brothers. I couldn't fulfill my promise. I couldn't forgive, I couldn't be a better older brother," and stuff like that. Like, Hades took on an Atlas level of a burden and continued to do so until the time of his death. And he was still appreciative of Chin as a king, and so did Chin, because Chin gives him respect, calling him a fellow king and my friend. Remember, because he said, "There is no king other than me, because I am the king of kings, so there are no kings. I'm the only king." He acknowledges this and states, my king, King of Helheim, my friend. He still acknowledges the fallen Hades as a king and his friend. I like that camaraderie between the two, 100%, because the parallels are there. And it does suit him to acknowledge another king finally. Chin is finally, like, he's acknowledged another king, even though he boasted about being the only true king, the only real king, the king of kings, etc. Which, once again, that's Alexander the Great, was the king of kings. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the fact is that this episode had so much going for it in those first, 10 minutes with the epicness of everything going down. And then Zeus later laments and says when Adamus is getting so pissed and he goes after Brunhilde and stuff, Beelzebub stops him and says a similar line that Odin said to Beelzebub of, "Do not stop my Ragnarok, do not stop my fun." Beelzebub was more of the case of, would you really disrespect Hades' sacrifice? Hades fought fair and square and lost. Would you really disrespect him by going and killing the injured opponent after the fact? Really? This isn't a battlefield. This is a duel. And he lost. Are you going to disrespect your brother's memory like that? And Adamus hates it. Obvious. We understand, I understand Adamus's point of view here. I truly do. But at the end of the day, you cannot, he cannot do this, right? So Beelzebub stops, the attack on Brunhilde, stops him from going after and finishing off Emperor Chin and stuff like that. So a lot going down there. Zeus acknowledging the fact that to Ares and Hermes and stuff, and basically says, at that last moment, and we do see him move his eye and look at his two brothers, and he goes, "I'm sorry, my brothers." He goes, at the end, he wasn't thinking of himself. He apologized to us. And Zeus is like, I could never... Zeus is so old and stuff like that, but remember, Hades is still older. Hades is still the older brother, and he's just like... He still apologized for not being able to do, and Zeus is just there that damn brother, you know what I mean? It's a very heartfelt moment. It really, truly is. And there's a lot to cover here in this chapter, or in this episode, because not only did we cover all that, then we get the scene that I said was a spoiler alert, at which I thought took place before this, but now takes place right after this, is in the first episode review, I talked about the fact that Hermes, whose side we don't really know, he's very much of an enigma, we don't know exactly what his end game is. He is writing ballads for each of the fallen warriors, whether human or god. But he's written one for each of the fallen. And we see him, using his violin in a wordless ballad or requiem for Hades. And he puts it away. Beelzebub is very impressed, claps along and says, well, is that an ode for Hades? And he says, absolutely, and stuff. And he goes, you're giving odes. And they don't remark on the fact that he gives odes not just to the gods, though they mention it in the dub. He goes, giving an ode to the fallen gods. And Hermes sort of gives him the side eye, and you see the names. He gave one to Lubu, Adam, Raiden, etc. He gave them to all the fallen, not god or human, just the fallen of Ragnarok. He wrote an ode to them, and I was just like, you know what, that's very beautiful. That's really, really nice, and it's something that, as I said, I really enjoy about Hermes as a character, because it leaves him as this compassionate enigma from what we understand. Beelzebub then states to Hermes, I'm here in your private quarters to inform your father, Zeus, I'm fighting next. I'm going to fight next. Then we also get Brunhilde showing up at the end credits with Goal to enter into a vault like the Only Magician. An apt name, really, for him. The Only Magician, Electrician 00001. And as a fellow electrician, of course, he is the godfather of electricity as far as I'm concerned. It's not as... Tesla is my first real electrician because he's the electrician of the electricity we modernly use today, and everything that we utilize, including even Wi-Fi connections, is all based in his designs, and modern electricity is of course based in his designs. So Tesla himself is here at the end of the episode, and he's going to be the fighter for round 8 up against Beelzebub. Very, very exciting. There's also one little small scene in between with Kintoki, another fighter. Kintoki of legend, talking with Buddha underneath the same tree that he was talking with Zeus under. He's still recovering, and they're talking, and they're just shooting the shit. And he says, I need you to do something for me, Kintoki. And Kintoki's like, sure, what do you need, Buddha? And he says, I need you to go find the dragon-slaying hero, Siegfried. Dun dun dun. And that's the end of that little scene. But there's so much there, as you guys understand. There's so much to cover. We could go over a lot of the emotions. And of course, I've already reviewed this as a manga chapter week to week. But realistically, I think I already covered this building up to this episode. Once again, Hades just loves his brothers. And he wants them to succeed. And he shoulders the burden, as I said, like Atlas. Chin believes himself to be the king of kings and needs to shoulder the burden of the people as well. So they both have this same shoulder, and they both respect each other as fellow kings because they hold the same burden for different people, but for the same reasons. And it's the love of the people, the love of the land, the love of the what have you. And once again, Chinese Brunhilde and Chin never seem to have a scene together. I think we were robbed of that. Because that's really, realistically, his only real mother figure. And I think they should have been reunited at some point. That would have been a nice touch. But it does not happen here, unfortunately. And once again, so as far as I know, it doesn't happen in the manga. Spoiler alert, it does not happen in the manga. But it does happen, unfortunately, I was hoping for maybe an anime filler scene for it to happen. It still could, of course, it still could. But as of this moment, it has not happened as of episode 6. That's a little unfortunate. As I said, the Buddha Kentoki scene is just building up more side plot stuff that I'm sure will be relevant later. Buddha is still playing in the background there, even though his fight is done and won. And then we have, as I said, Adam is still very much pissed off. Beelzebub, he wants to die, and yet he's going to go next. After Hades' loss, when he was so convinced that Hades would never lose. And Tesla is fighting next. So, very interesting to see how Tesla fights and stuff like that, of course. So, lots to unpack in episode 6. And now we only have 9 episodes to do 2 rounds. Plus all the in-between and the end stuff. 9 episodes. We took 6 to get us to this point. Granted, round 7, in my opinion, out of the next 3 rounds, while I dislike the round, it has my favorite character of the next 6 combatants in Hades. While Tesla is pretty cool, and Beelzebub is something, personally, I think Hades is the coolest character that we're going to see this season. As a combatant anyways like that, and he was really epic, and the soundtrack definitely made round 7 more epic, and I really appreciate that. So the OST, the sound design, 100% on that one. I think I covered everything there. So that was season 3, episode 6, Record of Ragnarok, Return of the King. Very good episode. Once again, recording a lot more of these as a result of being basically strapped to this chair or the couch, one or the other for the foreseeable future until my back is fully recovered. And hopefully I manage to get some ab workouts in sooner rather than later so I don't get too fat, you know what I mean? But, that's it for that. And hope to see you guys back here next time for episode 7. And, looking forward to it. Hope you guys are too. Have a good one. See you next time.